everything I'm going to talk about is talked about more in depth with our latest S&OP. You can scan the QR code if you want, grab a copy here, happy to sign it, personalize a message for you. I'll be at a table here during lunch to do that. So feel free to do that. Let's talk about, Eric has referred to the DDAE model. And what that stands for is Demand-Driven Adaptive Enterprise Model. And Eric also had a slide, I was taking notes here, and it was the slide with aspects of agility. And he had optimal inventory. Okay, so we always want to talk about optimal inventory. And that's going to be a big point that I'm going to talk about today. And we have to take some measures to stop traditional types of inventory metrics from affecting how we want to move forward. Another thing Eric said under automation was, why don't people trust the system? I have an answer for you, and I'll get to it in this discussion. And it's really pretty easy because they have experience with MRP and the master production schedule. That's the answer. All right. So the DDAE model here is composed of 3 components. We've got different ranges. We've got the operational, tactical, and the strategic range. But of course, we have to connect them. But on each side, there's a reason why we call it demand-driven. All right, because on each side of our model, we have market interfaces. So the operational interface, the market interface there, is actual demand. Like Eric referred to, Dr. Goldratt would say, if you don't sell it, it's not flow. It's true. You can accumulate things on a balance sheet, but unless you actually derive cash from it, it's not flow. And on the strategic side, we've got another market. It's called market-driven innovation. This is the vision that your leadership brings to the table. iPhone, a new development. It's where you see the market going. It's where the visionaries in your business see the market going, and define your strategy, define your product development, your marketing, and your capabilities. All right. We don't help you here. Okay. We don't help you over here. Well, we can, but that's external, kind of external to the DDAE model. We assume you have actual demand, and we assume you have vision. So what do we do inside of it? Well, we connect our operational model with what we call a tactical plan. Anybody have any experience with sales and operations planning in here? Okay. So you probably have heard a term called integrated reconciliation. That's a big deal with S&OP. It's Dick Ling, when he wrote the first book on S&OP, he talked about integrated reconciliation. It sounds awesome, right? Yeah, we bring everything together, we reconcile, and we give you the monthly plan, and you just go do it. Problem is it's not that easy. And traditional S&OP was never really bi-directional. And there's 2 forms of it, and what we found is there's actually 2 forms of integrated reconciliation that are necessary. There's tactical integrated reconciliation, and there's strategic integrated reconciliation. Because there are actually 2 loops that have to happen, and those loops intersect. So what we see here is in the middle of this tactical hub, we have a model configuration, and then we judge results of the model. That gives us information about configuration. Up here at the strategic side, we have what we call an adaptive business plan. Why do we say it's adaptive? Because the business plan, as we roll forward, is adapting to the environment, to what we're seeing in the future. And guess what happens? The adaptive business plan combines with the variance analysis here to give us tactical integrated reconciliation. Then we make suggestions up here, Combine that with market-driven innovation, that's strategic integrated organization. We're looking out farther in time. Now, you don't just say, okay, we're doing the DDAE model. Let's just flip it up. It's a journey. And we've kind of come up with this chart here, kind of put the buffer zones in the head here, okay? Because what we're really saying is, okay, we're going to start here. We're conflicted. It's not that we don't understand flow. It's not that we don't understand the importance of flow. It's not that we don't even have flow metrics. We do have flow. So we're completely distorting them with other metrics and legacy systems. Legacy systems that are designed to prop up distorted metrics and behaviors. We have to actively work against the system to do what makes sense, to create cash, to get things to a customer. So, how do you start with the DDAE model? Is we have to push past stage one. We have to get to stage two. We have to say, okay, let's try it. Let's dip our toe in the flow-based world of planning and execution. And we do that with DDAE typically. Now, the big question is, why? Why is that the kind of the initial step where we dip our toe in the water? Let's talk about it. So why DDMRP? Every type of supply chain management requires a signal, an initiating signal. It prompts activity, right? Whether you're in the MPS world, whether you're in the DDMRP world, whatever type of supply chain management you're in, you can't manage supply chains without an initiating signal of what to build. All right? So here comes DDMRP. It's intuitive, and the most important order is transparent. And we took a lot of knocks on that transparency because people said it's too simple. We're using 6th grade math to start. Right? And it's really important that we're telling you, simplify it to start, learn it, make it transparent. Then what can you do? You can automate. And guess what? Because people know it, it's transparent, they trust it, guess what? They will follow the system when you automate. Everything I just said does not apply to MRP. If you automate MRP, and by the way, they did, by 2000, people thought they actually created real-time MRP. They tried to do it customers. 2 weeks, that's what you say. It's way too nervous. Imagine every new signal you get, MRP is saying, oh, change, revise order action. They have 99% of activities now revise order actions. Every 5 to 10 to 15 minutes. 99. Can't automate something and expect people to trust it when they know that it doesn't work. They know it doesn't align with reality. That's why the biggest competitor of ERP, it's not best of breed add-ons. It's something you can walk right down off the supply store, spend $110 for a seat. What is it? Bingo. By the way, Microsoft never really figured that out. They lost a big opportunity. So, one thing that we don't talk enough about when we say DDMRP is intuitive and transparent, what we're building here is a solution for the next generation supply chain. The 20s. Because DDMRP aligns with what they think technology should look like and how it should behave. When we automate, it's like, oh, yeah, it's like, that makes sense to me. Color. It's intuitive for them. Show my kids stuff like this, and they go, yeah, Dad, well, you just do that, and that, and that. It makes sense. And of course, it brings results, proven results. We have several PhD theses and research on this. We have a compilation of results here. It works. You know, there was 20 years ago, Eric's talking about TOC, so I'll bring up something that I heard at a TOC conference 20 years ago. The gentleman's name was Matt. And he made a statement, and I kind of view it as DDMRP as well. And I'm going to show you why. But he said, I'll say it, DDMRP is like a mosquito at a nudist colony. Anywhere it lands, it works. Okay? In most cases. So the question is why? What are the application conditions for DDMRP? We have to understand something about the nature of the world we live in now. It is this. There is a significant disparity between what is called customer tolerance time and what is called cumulative lead time. And that is what we call the make-to-order gap. This is reality. Okay, now, we have elongated cumulative lead time. Everyone know what a cumulative lead time is? Cumulative lead time is the longest chain at the end of events measured in time. And it can include the distribution. So essentially, it's the time that it takes to distribute, manufacture, and procure.
It can include engineering.
Well, that would be the cycle. So what we've got here is elongation of human. Why did our team, you know what, we have technology, we have fancy jets. Our team big times also expand. What did we do to ourselves? There you go. We source globally. Why did we do it? Cheaper. We thought it was cheaper, right? We expanded the time that it takes to get something to market. In the meantime, and that happened largely over the last 25 years, in the meantime, what has happened to customer tolerance time? Led by internet, online marketplaces like Alibaba, Amazon, drones, right? Customer tolerance time is 0 in many cases, right? So, and this is just reality. 20 years ago, if you wanted, as a customer, you wanted to find some specialty tooling thing for your production, what did you have to do 20 years ago? You had to try to find a sales rep or hope that a sales rep would visit you. Or you had to go to a convention, a tooling convention. In other words, the cost of information was huge from a customer standpoint. Now what's the cost of information? 0. 5 seconds. I could have a list of suppliers that might have what I need, and now I'm off to the races, right? So what we see here is the make-to-order gap is a problem, big problem. Now, here's the dirty little secret: is that MRP was designed as a make-to-order system. How do I know that? But how do I know that? It's because what does MRP mean? 0. It's designed to take a source of demand, let you know, give you a synchronized plan, buy, what you need to make, how you need to integrate, precisely at the right time, and leaving nothing left over. Just that simple, right? So when we have a make-to-order gap, but we have MRP, we got a problem. Big problem. So what do? This is the whole reason why that's because we try to shoot forecasts correctly. So we invented the NBS, which was, in a way, a bit of a okay, let's take a bunch of demand, let's kind of work it out with capacity, And now here's the mean, through the planning process. Problem is, MRP requires a precise number, right? And if I have a make-to-order gap, that precise number has to be based on the orders. So the longer the make-to-order gap is larger. Yes. And on top of that, remember I said it requires precisely. The more detailed we make it the forecast, the bigger the error. So it's not just proportional to the length of the make-to-order gap. It's more detailed. Here's an example. It's one thing for me to say, I'm going to sell 5,000 t-shirts over the next 6 months. How many yellow medium shirt are going to sell in 6 months? I bet you're going to be putting more wrong on that than you are the total number of t-shirts. Okay. But MRP requires you to do that. Now, here's not the end of the story, because everybody's focused on this, right? How much money we spend, how much time, money, energy we spend on forecasts. Is that? This whole past. There's a great saying out there, so beware of trees. Maybe I got my lawn. Okay? Because there's more to this story with the elongation of cumulative lead times. There's this. The longer the cumulative lead time, the more points you have to integrate, the more delay accumulation you get. What we have here is a bidirectional. This is demand signal distortion. Goes upstream. This is supply continuity variability that goes downstream. Both are proportionate to the length of the cumulative lead time and the length of the make-to-order gap. So my question to you is, in the VUCA world, how common is this issue? Pretty common. There are rare exceptions. This is why DDMRP can be a mosquito. Okay? At the new mosquito. At the new mosquito. All right. Now, let's say you make this case your leadership. You've been banging this DDMRP drum maybe for a year, maybe for 2 years. Whenever somebody comes into your office, they say, it doesn't matter the question, the answer is always DDMRP. They won't shut up about DDMRP. Okay? They read books, they go to classes, they talk to consultants, they go to technology user conferences, they come back with literature, PowerPoint, training. Finally, leadership says, okay, let's try it. There's enough examples in our industry, we know what to do. Well, congratulations, because this is your view. This picture likely, I have immense amount, admiration and appreciation for folks jumping out this thing. But this is a little bit what it's like when you're implementing DDMRP. Why? Because all of these defensive bulwarks are trained right on you. It's the information system, the metrics, and the people, even some of the people. Let's be honest here. Some people want you to fail. They got a dog in the fight. Maybe they feel hurt because their Excel sheet isn't being used anymore, whatever. It's hard. Okay? So, anybody ever seen the movie Finding Nemo? So I have teenage daughters. So I have been indoctrinated to the Disney princess movies and Pixar movies. I've probably seen Nemo, listen to it in the car as we're driving. So in the movie, Nemo gets captured, he gets put in a fish tank, and he eats his bugs, right? And they're plotting the whole movie about escape fishing. And they go through all kinds of things, and then they finally escape. You know what the last 2 words of the movie are? So they go through all of this. They get out there, they get in the ocean. Last 2 words of the movie, now what? Okay? And they're stuck in the bags and everything like that. Okay, now what? We got the yes on the DDMRP going, get some initial traction. Now what? There's 2 things. Number 1, you better establish the beginning, the initial connection between the operational and then the next thing, you better provide leadership with the appropriate visibility. DDMRP efforts. This is the initial connection. If you don't do this step, they will default to things that you don't want them to default to. We'll also provide you with something that you can easily. My business partner Carol, she had a phrase that said every time we had to talk to executives, we had to provide big dumb animal picture. It made it easy for them, like, oh, okay, all right, then next topic. Because that's what you want. You want, oh, okay, cool. Now let's talk about something else. All right, so let's talk about the tactical adaptive loop here. First of all, what's an adaptive loop? Well, I want to shout out to my mom, Deborah Smith, here on this, because we collaborated on the book in 2014, Man-Driven Performance, and she brought the complex adaptive science aspect to the book. She brought this idea of adaptive loop, and it really, really resonated with me, like me, and I've been working on this all just to articulate more about what it means in terms of the management. So, an adaptive loop is a way the system reconfigures itself. Right? And there's 3 aspects to it. And it's a circle. It's a circle, that's what's called a loop. So where's the start of the circle? It's immaterial. So let's just define the 3 aspects of an adaptive loop. There's emergence. Emergence is, let's just say, a new configuration of the system. And the system is defined with boundaries, typically. It could be an organization, it could be a function, it could be a supply chain, it could be a geography. Now, the next thing is, once I have a configuration of the system, then I have to have feedback for that configuration, which means I've got to have signals or patterns that tell me about how that configuration is performing. And we use this from adaptive agents, you can say people, personnel in the system. And they use this feedback to learn in order to do what? To then select a new configuration system. Emergence. So we're going in a circle. Now, in the DDAE model, we have 2 adaptive loops. Okay, and I've spoken about it already, but we have tactical feedback coming from the demand operator. This is right now. Let's just say that's the DDM. And then we have tactical selection occurring with these the adaptive agents here. Then we have tactical emergence. And same thing on the strategic side. So what does the tactical adaptive loop specifically look like with DDMRP? There we go. Now, for a long period of time, we always put DDMRP with just these 5 aspects. Right? That is only a partial picture. And it's not a sustainable picture. All right? So what we have to have is position, protect, pull, and adapt. All right? We've got our master settings here. We've got our decoupling and profile, dynamic adjustments, planning, visible collaborative execution. Now we've got the manager of an S&OP driving around the signals, the feedback that we get from the initial DDMRP effort. The bacon buffer. How's the bacon buffer doing, right? I'm really going to think about that. And a hot dog buffer. Really mindful. Okay, so now we're going to go back and then we'll make adjustments, right? So specifically, what does that kind of look like with regard to adaptation? At the tactical side of things, there's 4 things. We're going to review, we're going to project, we're going to configure, and when possible, we're going to exploit. And Eric's talking a lot about, we may not use the same language all the time, but his, when he was just talking about the ability to simulate, the ability to test, stress test, it's exactly what we're talking about here is how can we look at what has happened? How can we look at what we think will happen? How can we reconcile that, configure, and then as we're going through time, how can we look to exploit some opportunities? So, tactical review. Okay. We've got to be able to judge what has happened, and we've got to be able to judge it in terms of the model. So, I might look at, all right, are people performing as per the model? Are they behaving in line with the model? Because if people don't behave in line with the model, then you can't judge anything about the model. Because they're not following the model. So anything that you try to measure and say, oh, see, inventory turns didn't do what you said they were going to do, and we look and we say, oh, well, that's because these people are buying or making all kinds of stuff they shouldn't make. We have to be able to reconcile the behavior with the intended purpose of the model. We have to be able to see also, though, judge the effectiveness of the settings of the model. So we've got to be able to look at behavior as well as the settings of the model and how it's performed in a past cycle. Typically, we judge a cycle, a tactical cycle, as a cumulative lead time in the past. Projection, okay. Let's take our demand that we know, plus our forecasted demand here. I know I said the F word, right? Just for the record, when we're talking demand-driven, the message should not be don't forecast. The message should be don't use the forecast to hit yourself in the head. Okay? Absolutely every business should be forecasting. They should all think about it. Would anybody tell you don't think about the future? Don't try to judge the future. No, of course. You want to get as much information as you can, as much business intelligence as you can about the future. What you don't do then is turn around and say, I know this is wrong, but I'm going to initiate planned order coverage and order activity anyway. Okay? So, yes, we have actual demand because maybe our order distribution pricing is a week out. And then beyond that, we've got average rates of demand that we can forecast. It's not rocket science, we're doing it anyway. And then what we can do is we can project buffer performance given that future outlook. Based upon review, based upon projection, now we look at reconfiguration. And we're going to push on specifically with just DDMRP. Remember, I'm only talking about stage 2. This is dipping the toe in the water, right? Are decoupling points in the right spot? Do we have the right profile settings and values? Do we have planned adjustment factors that we have to initiate on certain decoupling points? Do we have to change part attributes? For instance, maybe we need to migrate one part from another. We have an example here. We're going to go from MMM profile to MMM. We're going to see, we're going to project, we're going to simulate what that profile migration might mean for us. We can judge the inventory impact, and then we can simulate performance in the past. In other words, what did this profile in these circumstances? We can also project against future demand. Then we go to exploitation. Exploitation in DDMRP is kind of simple, right? It's a lot more than the whole DDO. DDMRP, exploitation, it's about communicating with maybe purchasing. What we want to understand is, are there places where we should promote, where work is helping for us, where we have good supply, and conversely, are there places that we should take? Well, I know we love going back to the well here on this and promote this project. We don't have the supply, the ability right now. We want to spend time promoting things over this over that. In consumer products, the worst thing you can do is promote a product you can't support, drives people to the store, and since it's not there, they buy it better. So we're saying over. Yeah.
Online, they can hear you better when you're by the laptop. We'll fix it in the break.
Oh, sorry.
You're a cruiser.
I will
appreciate that as a speaker.
I will tether myself. Apologies to online people. Okay. And obviously, capacity is a major issue with tactical exploitation. So there has to be a connection with capacity to DDMRP. So in other words, we're beginning to build connective tissue to other elements of the organization to paint a picture. Remember, we're just dipping our toe in the water. Now, let's turn to the other now what. We need to provide leadership with the appropriate visibility of the DDMRP efforts, okay? So they don't, say, run back to mama and default to things that can be harmful. This view, when we're talking about DDS&OP, the tactical side, is too granular for them. It requires too much of their time, too much immersion for them to say, oh, I get it. They don't. Okay, and they don't want to. So what they're going to do is they're going to default to conventional inventory metrics, and they're going to judge DDMRP performance on those conventional inventory metrics. Because fundamentally, guys, regardless of what you tell them, they think about DDMRP as an inventory initiative most of the time. You can say, no, it's a service initiative. No, it's a flow-based initiative. But the way that they manifest it in their brain is it's inventory. So what 3 metrics are they going to default to? Turns. Hey, it just happened to be the first one. What's the next inventory metric that they're going to be looking at? Well, you have obsolescence. In a way, dollars. How much money do we have in inventory, right? That's a pretty big metric for people. What's the next one? There we go. Time. See, this is easy, right? We all know it. Turns, monetary units, time units, right? And they're going to try to line this up with DDMRP. And let me show you why this is going to be a bad thing, okay? Why do we measure inventory? Why even bother? What's the purpose? Why have inventory metrics? Okay, all right. It's working capital, right? It's under the working capital equation. And basically, we're trying to judge whether the capital is working for us, right? So, yeah, we're attempting to know whether the captured money in our system is working for us properly. Is that fair? So, yeah, we all have common knowledge base here. It's common sense. So, tell me, is this good? What? It depends. Okay, because there's gonna be some people in this room go, "Oh heck yes, that's good," and other people are like, "Oh, it's horrible," right? What's the questions that you want to ask right now?
What's the quality?
What?
The quality.
What's the quality of the inventory? Okay. What's other questions? What are the stockouts? Lead times? What? Excess, okay. I'm shocked I didn't hear one thing. Two things. What industry is it? And what are the benchmarks? What are the benchmarks for the industry, right? What do our competitors do? All right. In other words, all of these three metrics, they don't tell a story at all. They just lead to more questions. They don't answer questions, they lead to more questions. They all require a massive amount of context, right? Okay, so let's stick with this true, like, conceptual value of inventory. What's the value of inventory? What's the true value of inventory? Okay, okay, it's there when you need it. Good. We consider it an asset on the balance sheet, right? It's part of the working capital equation. Working capital is assets minus liabilities, where assets are defined as inventory, accounts receivable, cash equivalents, minus our liabilities, accounts payable, debts. Okay. Problem is when we're putting inventory in the working capital equation, we're assuming that inventory can just be exchanged for a debt. It really can't. All right. And we're also really reluctant to do something called writing it off, right? All right. So the balance sheet says it's an asset. Lots of gurus have said it's a liability. They're both right, but for the wrong reasons. Okay. So I'm going to bring out my nifty graph. I'm sure most of you have seen this. All right. Because the term asset and the term liability with regard to inventory has nothing to do with the financial definition of asset and liability. It has everything to do with its impact on flow, the ability to facilitate flow in a supply chain. There are two universal points of inventory. Point A, where you have too little. If you are a planner, if you are at point A with your parts, who calls you? Sales. Why can't my customers get their stuff? Right? If you're there's point B, too much, right? If you're a planner and you got mounds of inventory of your parts, who calls you? Fine. Why do you have so much cash in inventory? And in reality, you're getting calls from both, right? But let's not go there. We got 2 points. If we know these 2 points exist, we do, it's universal, every buyer, every planner knows it, then we know that there's a curve that looks like this. And we know that really what smart planning and purchasing people want to do is they want to try to be between point A and B. Because when you're in between point A and B with your inventory, you're facilitating flow. The big question then becomes is, how can we measure point B? How can we measure this, right? Or how can we define it? Because that's the asset range. Not a financial definition of asset, but truly it facilitates the return on your assets at that level. Okay, how do we measure something like this at the leadership level? Because if you put this in front of them, the eyes are going to glaze over. All right, so I give you the inventory target ratio. All right, the inventory target ratio is a way to establish inventory values against a nominal point in the optimal range. So when we know that these situations exist, point A and B, we know there's an optimal zone, then there has to be a nominal target. Now, what's the nominal target in DDMRP? Red plus half the green. Everybody's boom, like that. Right? That's the nominal. All right. We calculate point B, top green. We can calculate the range of this optimal range, top of red plus green. We can divide the low side. We can divide the high side. All right. So the ITR is calculated by dividing your on-hand by the nominal on-hand target value. So if you had 1,200 on-hand units and your target was 1,000, your ITR would be 1.2 on that position. Okay? And this is kind of the buffer view as your nominal, right? And because it's tied to, because the buffers adjust, then the nominal target is adjusting as well. All right? Okay, so here's where it gets even a little bit more interesting. The ITR is exactly the same with units or cash, which is kind of cool because we've always had a hard time reconciling. We changed the inventory narrative to what we want it to be. Let's talk days or let's talk money, right? But here we have a way to bridge that against a target. Now, the point, this is important. The point of the ratio is not to highlight dollars committed to inventory. It's not the point to highlight units committed to inventory. The point of the ITR is to judge one way or another how far off the model we are. Is the model working? Are we following the model? We've committed to a configuration of a model. Now we have to judge if the model, if the inventory in the model is being used as per the model. It should be a quick and impactful view for leadership. They see green, they see one number, green, yellow, red. All right? Now, it gets a little bit trickier because that's easy to calculate an individual position, right? Oh, sure, okay, I got my nominal point. I just divide that by the on-hand, or divide the on-hand by the nominal. But for the collective group of buffers, we got to be a little bit sneakier, okay? Or we got to get a little bit more mathy, right? So what we need is we need to understand the value of the spread of the difference in the group, okay? And then we also then need to be able to judge the distribution in the group, all right? Do I have any Six Sigma black belts in the room? Okay. All right. Well, there is an equation that's well known that will allow us to do this. It's called CPM. Everybody ever heard of CPM? Okay. What is CPM? CPM is a capability index, also known as the Taguchi Capability Index, that is a function of the specification limits, mean of the process, and a provided target, the nominal. All right, here's the equation for it. Now, what does it look like with DDMRP? Here's what it looks like. Now, I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to show you by position aggregating windows of time. So single position over a 7-week window that we can judge and calculate a CPM for. Now, the basic rule is the higher the CPM, the more online we are, the closer to the target we are in the group, okay? So when you can see here, we've got the red, we get 2 bad weeks there. You can see the CPM score is actually lower relative to the others, okay? So this is single part, multiple buckets of time. But what if I wanted to look at the entire group together? CPM also works. Here's what we got. This is what it looks like altogether. And this is the kind of view that leadership needs to see. We can do all finished goods, we can do all intermediates, we can do all raws, we do all distributed. And notice that despite, go back here, despite FP1, finished product 1, despite its hiccup in weeks, what, 5 and 6 or something, or no, through -2 and -3. By the way, hiccups are going to happen, right, in certain positions. But despite that hiccup, overall, what we've got here is a nice story. It means that collectively, we are following the model. The model is working as per the plan. We got our upper specification limit, our lower specification limit. What is the upper specification limit, lower specification limit, DDMRP for people? Copper red plus green, right? Now, notice something though. It's in dollars, or it's in monetary units. Why? Different units of measure, potentially. So we go to dollars. And remember, a few slides ago, the dollars and the units, they reconcile at the ITR level, okay? But to reconcile, to deal with different units of measure, we could have gallons, pallets, versus whatever. We go to dollars at this level. So what does ITR tell leadership? Number one, remember, we're at the beachhead. They gave you a mandate, right? They gave you a mandate to try DDMRP. They need a way to understand if that mandate is being carried out effectively. So the ITR shows them whether inventory is being used as an asset for flow as per the model. Now you've got to prep them on this, right? You've got to explain why we're going to use ITR. The best thing about the ITR is it's always in context. The context is the DDMRP model. You don't, there's no more yeah, buts and things like that. It's contextual in nature. So with this, I'd like to go to a different, I'd like to connect it to something. Many of you have probably seen this flow equation. All right. This was also in the management performance. And we've done a lot of work with this. It was a way to visualize that connection to flow, from flow to ROI, and then what was behind flow. But what do we really mean here? Say visibility, access to relevant information. Variability is the amount of disruption we experience. Flow is the rate at which the system converts product required by a customer. Cash velocity is the rate of net cash generation. And of course, we've got that's the equation for ROI, right? So this is the whole flow equation. We've got to have the information, the right information. We've got to be able to control disruption, boost flow, generate cash, boom. We know that this equation exists in each relevant range. Okay, there is operational visibility, there is tactical visibility, and there is strategic visibility. So let's get a little bit more in depth here. What do we mean by visibility? What's the key for visibility? It's signals. All right, what signals are used to convey the relevant information about the range's objective? What are the ranges of the priority in the signal set? So signals have to have a range of priority. And then who sees the signals? These are all questions that have to be answered for us to have relevant information in each range. Next, we talked about variability, the control of disruption. Here we're talking about behaviors. More importantly, intended behaviors. You know, there's this old saying, tell me how you measure me and I'll tell you how I behave, right? We love to say that. It makes horrible assumptions behind that. The assumption is, tell me how I measure me, tell me how you measure me, and I'll tell you how I behave. Assumes that I know how to behave to be measured. I may not. I may think I do. I may take liberties. But if it's not if it's not defined to me, then you're going to see operator A do different things than operator B. So what are the expected behaviors in response to the signals and their relative strength? And who is behaving? This has to be spelled out. All right. This is really important as you're implementing DDMRP. Next, we have flow at each range. And this is, what are we measuring? What is the specific outcome that we're measuring to know whether the intended behavior was done? And finally, performance objectives. What are the performance objectives we're driving to get to cache velocity in each of those ranges? Now, you take this and you put it in a big table. All right, so I'm not going to read all this. All right, so you've got your range objectives. They're driving cache velocity in each range. You've got your range signals, the intended behaviors, and the measured results. Now let's go big dumb animal picture, because this you can't show this to it. But let's bring a little bit a level of clarity about how the flow equation in each range connects together, because you've got to have that for integrated reconciliation. All right, so here we've got the operational range. What we see is actual demand and the configuration of the model. They combine to give us the operational visibility, the signals for what to do. The signals with relative strength. In DDMRP, what would it be? Planning priority, on-hand status, okay? Then that leads to the behavior we want, which leads to the measured result we want. Okay, fine. That's the operational aspect of DDMRP. Now, how does it connect to the tactical side? Because remember, we have to begin to do the tactical adaptive loop. Well, here you go. The measured result of operational flow becomes the tactical visibility. We're measuring the performance in the past. We're creating the run charts. That's giving us the signals combined with what we call tactical inputs from the strategic side, the future. What's coming at you? This is, how did the model perform in the past? What's coming at you? So then that then fosters tactical variability. What does that mean? We see the tactical behavior is, one of them is model configuration. And why is that? And then it comes right back around to here. That's why these arrows are colored the way they are, right? Now let's connect it to the strategic side. Tactical flow, so the flow in the period then becomes strategic visibility combined with strategic recommendations from DDS&OP. Do we need a new shift? Do we need a new warehouse? And market-driven innovation, vision from our leadership. That creates behavior. This is adaptive S&OP. Then that feeds back to our tactical inputs. Here's what's coming at you guys. Do your model thing. All right? That's how it all hooks together. And remember, the whole point of this discussion is we started here and we have to begin to make sure that we can push up to the stage 3. So we have to begin to build that, like I said, connective tissue to the tactical and strategic side so that we can communicate properly about DDMRP, about its success, or about its refinement, about its appropriateness, so that the organization gains the confidence to continue on the journey. Kind of excited about something? Fall 2023, we'll have Orlicky 4 out. Complete teardown and rebuild. The Orlicky 3 was like 572 pages. Lots of stuff, right? This is going to be around 340. We have removed all the old unnecessary stuff that people don't even use anymore in MRP, or they shouldn't use. We have thoroughly explained to the next generation of supply chain professional what's the purpose of planning, what is MRP, what are all the inputs of MRP, how do you configure those inputs, and how MRP actually works. Then we discuss what goes wrong with it, why that happens, and what are some alternate rules that we can use with MRP to better plan in the VUCA world. This book is built for the 20-somethings, okay? I'm excited about it because it should effectively bridge conventional planning with the next iteration of what should become conventional planning in the next 10 to 15 years, all right? With that, I am done.